This is Are You in Session? I'm Mary Maudsley Scruggs, LMFT.
And I am Josie Blosser, LMFT.
Welcome. We don't have our intro video, right?
We're going,
looking
right?
At producer Hannah. So, today we are kind of having a different show.
That's right. It's going to be a little bit more spontaneous.
Spontaneous.
Is that the right word?
Yeah. Spontaneous, open.
Impromptu.
Who knows what we will be talking about by the end of this.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You've been warned now.
Better buckle up. It's going to be a ride, people.
Maybe it'll be more fun.
Yeah. Well, with that, Mary, how have things been going for you?
Good. Wait, did you say what we're talking about, though?
Do we know what we're talking about?
We don't know what we're talking about. But generally, I just want people to know as I start this.
There we go.
We're catching each other up on our lives, kind of.
Our professional lives, not our personal lives.
Mostly, yeah. We can add a little personal spice in there.
Okay.
And asking each other some questions and going from there. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
So, listen, it should be fun. It just may be a little bit of everywhere. Kind of like watching a tennis match when your head's like boom, boom, boom.
Yeah, this really is just people listening to us talk today.
So, and also the fun thing, like I think Josh will really like this. Shout out to you, Josh. Is Mary and I will often, well, I feel like not so often anymore, but we would find ourselves in each other's offices talking about everything and anything. And so this will probably be the most like realistic of what it looks like if you would walk into our office after we text each other and say, hey, are you in session?
Yeah, which it's funny because we haven't actually seen each other in a couple weeks because one of us or both of us is busy.
Right. Why is that? What's going on in this season of life for us?
I don't know. Summer makes schedules weird.
I think
Clients
either
are coming in.
clients are coming in, we're either working all day, every day, or we're not off at the same time.
That's true. So, yeah.
So let's talk about that. I don't know if people care. I think it's fascinating. The rhythms of therapy. Do you experience like fluctuation in people wanting to go to therapy during certain seasons?
Yeah, I do. I feel like, like Carrie, who's on Therapist Take, or I don't know if you guys can see the sign, but we have her sign here. But like she says, usually it's like March and October that tends to be really busy seasons. And but also just like, I think what I've learned too is it's like I'll have a bunch of clients on a wait list. And then, so I'm not taking any new clients. But then it gets to a point where you have to kind of figure out, like, when is it time to start taking them?
Right.
And then it's like, oh, shoot, where are all my clients? So then they get called on a wait list. But at that point, maybe they found someone else. And, like, they don't all necessarily come in.
Right.
Then you're, like, busy with a bunch of intakes. And you're, like, super full and packed. And then you do it again. And I feel like that's my cycle.
Right. I would agree with that. I think that's been the most interesting part of being a therapist in the private practice setting is having to adjust and acclimate to, I keep calling them the rhythms, but like the rhythms and the waves of therapy and like being busy or not being busy. You said March and October tend to be historically like busy months for therapists, at least from our reports and practice reports.
Yeah.
But we know it's pretty standard in the summer for our clients to come less frequently or to kind of fall off the rotation entirely because of vacation or they're outside. So they're getting like the natural good endorphins and dopamine. Everything feels a little bit better in the summer, I think.
And then some, like, I feel like I've had a good amount of teacher clients. So then in the summer, they're like, we can come anytime,
True.
So
That's
then
so
it's
true.
like, I also just have clients coming at different times than I did before.
Right.
The summer.
Right.
So
It's a fun challenge for a therapist because that also
Yeah.
impacts us personally. Like, how do we make our schedule? How do we work our lives around that? Do we take vacation in the summer knowing that it might be lighter? Do we not?
yes, take vacation.
Take the vacation. Take the time off.
Yeah. Yeah. So, in the last 2 weeks, I would say, what would you be catching me up on if you were to come into my office?
I think in the last 2 weeks, I would sit there and really focus on, because I was thinking about this yesterday. I feel like I have gotten into this pattern where I use a same intervention and I try to incorporate it into every single case that I have. And it's like, it's almost like my fixation as a professional where I'm like, ooh, I really love this intervention. A lot like a shiny new toy.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I want to play with it with every case. And obviously that does not work with every client because we're all coming in for different needs. But I would say the thing that lately I've been working on is like helping people establish the line and the boundary between like secrecy and privacy. And working with couples, that's fun to do because like where does someone get the autonomy of having privacy versus where does it become secret, which is a more hurtful, harmful thing to the relationship. So that's what I've been doing a lot in my office over the last 2 weeks.
Any tidbits you would like to share with the audience?
Yeah, I think, again, with our nature of working with betrayal trauma, the line between secrecy and privacy can feel really fragile and really scary to like figure out that difference. But it seems to be the consensus that I keep coming back to is when privacy turns into secrecy is because secrecy is fueled by self-preservation. So I don't want to tell my partner this thing because I'm afraid of how they're going to feel, which could, again, mean I'm getting in trouble, which it's your partner, not your parent.
Yep.
Or I don't want my
Say
partner.
that again. It's your partner, not your parent.
It's your partner, not your parent. Like, your partner's not getting you in trouble.
You should make a jingle for that.
They're expressing to you how your actions are hurting them and they would like for you to stop. But we can talk about that another time. So yeah, helping people identify, hey, when you omit this information, why?
Yeah.
And is it for your benefit and your good? Or is it just because, again, it's more of a private matter?
Yeah, that's something too I feel like I've been talking about a lot with clients too, where it's like on both ends, a lot of times it's been like individuals where they had a scenario and it was like, I found out from my partner this happened and they didn't tell me because it hurt my feelings, but then it still hurt my feelings in the end. And I was like, well, that's frustrating. And vice versa. It's like you're ultimately kind of trying to control your partner in this. And that's not fair.
Right.
That's not right.
Right.
And like they still found out.
Well, and I think someone might come back and say, like, Josie, in a healthy relationship, my ideal version is that there's not ever really even a need for privacy. There's nothing that I think, do, or say that I would not be comfortable with my partner knowing. And I think, sure, totally, I understand. But a lot of times in the context that we are talking about, where does privacy have to exist is like, hey, I had a business luncheon with coworkers. Here's where we went, how long we stayed there, and how much money I spent. But I don't necessarily need to tell you what we discussed because that is more of a private matter for the business. Or, hey, I had past dating partners before I met you and got married to you. What existed in those relationships is private between us two because that was a part of my life before, and it does not have a direct impact on you now. It's not that I'm hiding things from you. It's just that it's not relevant to us and what's happening now. Because overall, I would, for the most part, agree in a healthy relationship, there should be nothing that you do, say, or think that your partner shouldn't get to know, even if they are going to have some type of feeling about it.
Yeah, because it's just not fair. Like it kind of goes back to consent in a way. Like I want to know what I'm consenting to in a relationship with someone of any kind, really. You know, like I want to know what I'm signing up for.
Right.
And if I'm lacking information, I can't fully consent to that.
Right. And I think it's, fun for each couple to really figure out where is the line for them.
What
because
information really needs to be known.
Yeah, some couples want to know everything. Like I want to know when you take a deep breath. I want to know when you blink. When I'm not there to gaze into your eyes.
Yeah.
And other people are like, I don't need to know that. It's not relevant. So working through that of helping them figure out what is need to know information versus like what's want to know information and what's I don't really need to know that at all.
Yeah.
So that's what I would tell you about.
That's
What's
fun.
been happening for the last 2 weeks in your office?
What has been happening?
What would you catch me up on? Any new challenges, lessons you've learned, kind of patterns or things you've experienced?
Lessons I've learned. See, this was one of those questions I was like, I want to ask Josie this, but then I was like, well, what would I answer? And I still don't know. Lessons I've learned. Let me think a second. Oh, I don't know if this is a lesson I've learned, but this is something that's been on my mind a little bit more, is I really need to work on reading therapy books more.
Ooh,
I feel like after grad school, I was like, okay, I need a break from reading books because we did a lot of that. But I'm at this point where I'm like, some of the books that I've have my clients go through that I have read, I haven't read them in a while. And like looking at pulling it up with my clients and looking at it with them is not the same as like me remembering the content of it and like experiencing it the same. But the question is like, where do I start? Which books do I start with?
There's so many good ones.
Yeah.
So truly, where do you start?
And do I just start with the ones I've already read and reread them so I can refresh my memory? Do I start with new ones? Should I just do audiobooks? But like, I think this is where it gets hard with like boundaries, because when I get in my car and I'm leaving the office, I want to think about something else. I don't want to consume more therapeutic content. But then if I'm having my busy weeks like I have been, when am I supposed to do that at the office?
Right.
And so that's been a challenge for me, I think, it's been on my mind. I haven't come up with a solution yet, but it's like, what would motivate me to read these books better? So then every once in a while I'm like, maybe I should do like a therapist book club.
You have been saying that, and I'm ready for you to launch it.
Okay.
Okay, so calling to all Oklahoma City, Edmond-ish local therapists, because I want it to be in person.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Can we do a therapy book club where we read one professional book?
Yeah. It could be like we each choose our own.
Yeah.
And then you do like a presentation of like, what did you learn from this? So then we're not all having to read the same book.
That's true.
And it could spark. And then it'd almost be like a marketing thing too, because it's like, oh, that book sounds interesting. I'm going to read that next.
Right. Or, I mean, again, we can work this out, because I'm thinking like sometimes I might need the accountability to read. I could sit here and lie to you guys. I wouldn't do that. I can't give a presentation over a book.
Yeah, you couldn't give a presentation. See, that's the accountability piece.
You're right. You're right. What would be the book, like the number one book that you're like, I have this, or it's in my queue, or it's in my shopping cart, and I want to read it?
2 books, because I'm going through them with clients right now, and one of them, Hold Me Tight. I'm going through the workbook version of it, and I'm like, I need to reread the book. It's been a minute. And then
Rest in peace, Sue Johnson.
Yes. Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. Like, that's one that I've heard great things about. I've had clients read it and they love it, and I'm like, okay, I need to actually read it. There's also plenty of others that I want to read too, but those are just the 2 that recently have been on my mind.
Yeah, I think that I was thinking of what books I would want to read. The Hold Me Close book, I have it. It's on my shelf. Shout out to Casey Brewer. She gave it to me, and it's still sitting there.
Yeah, I lost mine from grad school. I had to get it.
I don't remember ever purchasing
Hold Me Close, not Hold Me Tight. Are you talking about Hold Me Tight, the Sue Johnson one? Yeah, we were supposed to for couples therapy, but maybe we were like poor college students. We sold them.
I probably got it from Chegg, to be honest. I rented so many of my books towards.
Yeah.
Anywho, it's rough out there in college land.
Yeah, it is.
That would be one. And then I never read The Whole Brain Child.
Oh,
and I feel like recently, I don't work with kids, but I do work with parents. And I think that would be really good for me to have that in my little arsenal of tools.
Yeah.
So I think those would be the 2 books I would want to read. So then I think that, I really love what you were touching on of the balance of like investing into yourself professionally by reading and like consuming material. And I think that's what I would say good therapist, and I was about to say social media therapist, would say, is like you have to continue to stay ahead of the curve or like sharpen your skills.
Yeah.
And by consuming information is how you do. It's how we continue to expand and grow.
Yeah.
But what's the balance of like, I don't want to read a book about my profession because I've seen clients all week, and I would like to go read my fictional rom-com book.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the question, right? Obviously, it's not an easy answer, because otherwise I would have read a lot of books by now.
Right, absolutely.
But
I was
gonna say something and I forgot what it was.
Oh no, I'm so
always
sorry.
Do that.
We'll come back to you.
You were. Did you have a question in there, or were you just commenting?
I think just commenting or saying like, again, what would the steps be to find that appropriate balance?
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah. I feel like I just need to have some sort of like intentionality. Is that a word? Intentionality around like, oh, I noticed that this client canceled at 4:00, or I have this break. Like, maybe even if I just read a chapter or just 15 minutes of my break.
Right.
So that it's better. It's more than nothing.
I was just thinking I would have to actually start consistently scheduling breaks.
Maybe that's something you should be doing.
That is probably something I should be doing.
Yeah.
One
we could
always
have a
finds
reading
its
time.
way.
Oh my gosh. Not only we have a therapeutic book club, we could have a reading time.
We should. I know they want to fill the offices with therapists, but I'm like, could they make a little
Can we have like a playroom for therapists?
for reading?
Like a break room?
Yeah. We have this big room. The other half of it could be like a reading nook space. Be cozy.
That reminds me. At Commonplace, the bookstore in Oklahoma City. You know what I'm talking about? I saw that they are doing a story time for adults this summer.
Oh.
And I kind of want to go. And then that's what I'm like picturing when I think about us having a reading time is we could just like read chapters to each other.
I think I would hate that. There's you and there's me, and that sounds like not.
Well, especially if it's not like a fun, but not that they're not fun. It's interesting. But somehow I just got back to my thought that I couldn't remember earlier.
Oh, let's hear it.
I was going to say, that's like the beautiful thing about our field is that there are endless amounts of information we can be learning and taking in. Like, it's so cool to be challenged in that way of like, there's so much we can continuously learn, but it can also just be overwhelming because it's like, where do I start? Like,
for sure.
I want to be EMDR trained and I want to do this, but I also kind of am just like curious about this small thing, but I don't necessarily want the certification. And I just want to read this book, but I don't necessarily want this to like be my whole approach in therapy. And
right.
it's a lot, but
well,
it's
I
cool.
think where we were trained to be a bit more integrated with like a variation of models, we're very open to like reading from different models of therapy or different techniques or different whatever, which is the beautiful and overwhelming thing, is because we are willing to say like we want to dabble in it all, and maybe specialize in a few things, whereas 20 years ago a therapist was like, this is my like niche thing,
this is what I do,
and so this is pretty well all I'm gonna study or whatever. At least that's my understanding of how things went.
Yeah. And, you know, it's important to you to recognize, like, what's the research behind this and that. And, and that's helpful, too. But I'm also kind of thinking, like, what have you found to be maybe research-based or even non-therapeutic things that you have found to actually still be helpful for you as a therapist? Do you get what I'm asking?
Can you give me an example?
Like,
can you use it in a sentence, please?
Phone a friend. What are maybe just any sort of content? Maybe it's just like a certain type of movie or like a show or like other books you've read that you're like, this isn't a professional. This isn't professional content, but it's actually helping me in my work.
Gosh, I can't think of anything like specifically, but I think the thing that I feel like comes up regularly would be like TV shows or movies where there's some life lesson that someone has pulled out of a show or a movie that they can relate to. And it's just something that makes someone think differently. Like, man, when I heard that line in the movie, it just stood out to me and made me ponder on this. And again, none of it's research based. It's just was insightful for a person in that moment. It wasn't an intervention. It wasn't something that has been like tested and tweaked and, you know, refined to be this like mind blowing, go do this and it's going to change everything. It was just sitting in that moment, being reflective while watching a show.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, oh, this is a story that maybe reminds me of another client's story, and that maybe that's what they were experiencing or whatever.
Well, and I think even like for me, like, oh, this is maybe what my clients were experiencing, but also for clients to come in and say, I watched this and it was similar to what I'm going through, and, you know, it was interesting to see it from someone else's perspective. It made me think of it differently.
Yeah.
What about for you?
I would say, like, as far as content goes, my big go-to is, I'm about to do a plug here, the podcast Something Was Wrong. You know, I've mentioned that to you. Have you listened to it?
Not all of it.
Not a lot, but
I think I listened to like 3 or 4 seasons.
okay. The thing that's cool about this show is it is like it's people just telling their stories, and it's under the true crime category. This is one of those things where it's like if I had too heavy of a work week, I can't listen to it. But it's people telling their stories, but it's primarily related to like some sort of it's often related to like romantic relationship abuse of some kind. Not always, like there's other things too, but I don't feel like I don't work with like I think because of where we are, we don't see how do I say this like delicately, like we're not seeing like domestic, we're not seeing intimate partner violence like on a daily basis. It's not like our main niche. Not that this whole show is that, but there are some things there where it's helpful for me to hear these stories, to think of like if I'm seeing clients and I'm like, I remember that being a red flag for this other person's story, you know, just information for me to just think in the back of my mind, and that's been kind of helpful.
I think that's so interesting, because it's not you being like cynical and holding on to every negative thing that you would hear on this podcast, but being mindful of, hey, someone just shared in their own experience, these are the red flags that they ignored or dismissed early on. So I'm going to keep that in mind so that I don't also like ignore and dismiss when I hear it as a professional. Yeah.
Yeah. It's, I think it's helpful in that way. And I don't know, I guess too, that's where it's helpful for me to listen to it because I'm a therapist. I don't know what person who's not a therapist thinks. I don't know if that makes them scared of everyone when they're dating or whatever. But
right. I always find it fascinating. This is kind of segueing off of this. I don't know if you find this to be helpful, but I love hearing other people's experiences of like, and I was in therapy and this is what we talked about. To me,
and that's brought up a lot in that show.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just always so fascinating to me to hear what people say was helpful to them as clients, of like, I liked when my therapist did this, or I didn't like when they did this, or my therapist said it this way and it didn't feel good, but I can understand now what their intention was. It's very, I just really enjoy hearing and watching that stuff. It makes me think of like when we observed therapy in grad school. I love just watching other people's experiences, but I could sit and talk to clients of therapy all day long of like, what'd you experience in therapy that you liked or didn't like?
Like just
to hear their
experience of therapy.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
Yeah. To like hear, if we interviewed every person that walked through this door of like, what do you like about your therapist? Like, what do you like that Mary does? What do you like that Mary doesn't, or what do you not like that Mary does? It's always fascinating to me because we here at Family Solutions, like share clients, to hear them if they say like, oh, this is really different in your office versus when I'm in couples with Mary or whatever.
And I love when clients say like if you have the couple and then I have the individual and they're like, well, Josie said this. And I'm like, she read my mind, like before I even had to give the same feedback. And then there are times too where you and I might see it a little differently. And that's fun too. It's a fun challenge. But yeah, I really love when it's like, oh, we had the same thought.
Right.
It's validating.
Right. It's always my favorite when I'm like, did she now? Yeah. Weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, man, fascinating. Our job is fun. What else has been going on for you?
In what regard?
All the regards.
What else has been going on for me? I bought a house.
Congratulations.
You knew that.
I did know that. That's exciting. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Does that feel vulnerable?
No.
Vulnerable? I think I just smushed that word together.
Should it feel vulnerable?
No.
Yeah.
Look at you go.
Yeah, I bought a house. And I will say the vulnerable part of it is when it comes to big commitments for me, I'm like, whew, I'm in it now.
Yeah, you are.
This is the house.
This
like
is it.
Letting people look at it, I'm like, you can't not like it. I already bought it. Sorry. Right. Don't give me your feedback. Just say it's a nice house.
Exactly. I'll send a message to all of your friends and guests. Like,
hey guys, we like
tell me
house,
it's nice.
Okay?
I'm gonna get you a doormat that's just like, tell me it's pretty.
Yeah, just tell me it's
welcome.
Pretty.
No negative
statement.
Purchase.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unless they're gonna like, you know, be a solution to whatever negative thing they find.
Yeah, if I ask for a specific question, then you can be honest.
There you
but
go.
Sometimes a little lie, just a little one,
it's nice. I think it's the recognizing like it's what you and your family wanted and needed, and you guys think it's nice. Therefore, it's nice for you. It doesn't have to be something I would want.
Does that mean you don't like my house?
No, I do like your house. There's something that you said you were going to paint, and I was like, don't do it. I like it.
Yeah, I've gotten mixed reviews on that. Now I don't know what to do.
I don't remember what piece or area it was.
The bookshelves.
Yeah. The built-ins.
I will say Hannah, our producer the other day, she did say something that I was thinking. It was one of those moments where I was like, that's what I thought. She was like, you could do, I was like, yeah, I was thinking like a coffee color because it's like a blue, gray, purple. Mm-hmm. It's a pretty color. It's just not where I want. And it wouldn't be a color I would choose necessarily. Right. And I was like, she was like, yeah, you could get something with like a little terracotta in it. I was like, that's what I was thinking, but not too terracotta-y because it's just orange.
Yeah. It's like you're a Texas burnt orange fan.
I actually do like the Texas burnt orange color.
Oh, gosh.
I like it more than the OSU's bright orange.
Well, yeah, it's because America's brightest orange is not flattering on everything.
Yeah, it's like, they're Halloween colors.
I like Halloween. Forever. Or like a tiger.
Or like a tiger, yeah.
Wow, we are getting into the weeds.
See, this is what happens when we say we're just catching up.
That's right.
What else has been going on in your life?
Oh, gosh. It has felt busy. I think at some point I kept saying I just have to get through May. I just have to get through May, and that was true. My cousin is getting married in 2 weeks. So that I felt like kept me busy in May, and now we're looking forward to that. So wedding excitement, and which is fun. It's kind of fun to see like new relationship and love, and of course I've got like my professional lens.
I was gonna say, like, do we bring up the cynics in us right now in this moment?
Oh,
people getting married?
For sure. Yeah, knowing statistically, but it's fun because I'm always like, yeah, like, just don't ever forget like therapy's an option.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
I know people who know people.
That's right. It's actually a really sweet time as a therapist to like see non-callous jaded love.
Oh yeah, it's like, oh, yeah, that's nice.
So something that has happened, I feel like in my office, and this is very normal. But most times when people are coming to therapy, specifically speaking to couples therapy, very rarely are people coming in to tell me about the good times they're having in their marriage.
That's true.
And oftentimes I walk away and I'm like, man, that is a really tough situation. Sometimes. And every now and then I get so zoomed in on the more unhealthy things that happen in that relationship that I have to work really hard to zoom out and remember, like, I'm only hearing about a very, like, one, not a perspective, but like one part of their relationship. Mm-hmm. And it's not always the entirety of their relationship. Mm-hmm. And I caught myself this week being like, Eureka, like there are good things that happen in relationships. It's not all negative. But for some reason I had just really gotten like pulled into
noticed you were like,
yeah, because it was getting to the point where I was like, is this ever going to get better?
Yeah.
And so things that I just thought like, oh, what do I need to do professionally to zoom out and have a greater perspective, and just to remember like, hey, Josie, people are not coming to your office to sit there and talk about the fun times they had and this lovely date night that they had. They're coming to talk about the things that need adjusting and repair and mending, and to get a perspective or to get some guidance in how they should shift that.
But I feel like that also is just one of those things where if you're feeling that way with clients, it kind of just reflects of, imagine how they feel.
True,
like, they
absolutely.
must be like, is it ever going to get better?
Absolutely.
And then, you know, there's those times where I'm like showing them the beauty in their relationship and they're like, but, and it's like, well, but why don't you want to sit here with me in this? Because
this is a good thing.
Why you're here. Obviously, if you want to, you're wanting to stay together for some reason. It must be this stuff, but you're not wanting to talk about this stuff.
Right.
Because everything else is distracting you. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's such a balance to like, when do you have them focus on the good things and when do you have them focus on the bad things?
Yeah. I think I even like had an intake one time and I don't remember what it was, but they were saying something about it. And I was like, well, you guys are in it together, and that is beautiful. Like, even in the dark times, you're in this.
What was the column in grad school, or not column, but it was like a section, and you could do this for both individual or like relational therapy, and it was like constraints and resources. Was that the word?
Maybe.
Like, I think that's what it is. So I think that was the verbiage. Either way, basically, what are the pros and cons? Like, what supports do they have? What things hold them back?
Yeah.
And so oftentimes I find myself needing to like go through my cases and be like, okay, Josie, identify like what are their resources and the positives, and then what are the constraints and the things that like hold them back and are more negative.
Yeah.
Just to remember that both exist, because
Yeah.
both have to exist.
Yeah.
So
And then kind of thinking about like our personal lives, you know, there are things that we see and we know, like, I just feel like we have like a different lens on just life now because of the work we do, whether we want it there or not.
right.
But it's not my place to say something. Like, I'm here thinking about them, hoping for the best. And, but then there's also times where I see really good stuff. I'm like, oh, that's cool. That's great. Glad to know that relationship's in it, from what I would guess. Good spot. But you also don't really know until they're in your office.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
I remember one time too, I was like at a wedding event. It wasn't a wedding, but it was a wedding event. And I was like, you forget the audience you're with sometimes. It's like, oh yeah, I'm not around other therapists who have dark minds like I do. But I was like, oh yeah, like all this wedding stuff is fun, and we'll do it again in 10 years when like they're all getting divorced and remarried. And
Oh no.
and this person was like, well, let's hope that doesn't happen. I was like, oh,
Gasp, Mary.
I know. Read the room, right?
Oh my god.
I didn't not mean it, but it was just not the right audience.
The love was in the air for everyone else but you. You know, anywho, that's hilarious. Okay, well, I'm sure we have exhausted only a few of our options of things we could talk about, but I don't want to keep everyone here forever, because we could do this for hours, I'm certain.
Yeah, I'm sure they would like to join us for hours, though.
I'm sure they would, but they're going to have to pay for that. All right. Well, we will see you guys in a month or so. Because I think the first Thursday of July is July 4th, so we will not be here that week.
Probably not.
I will not be here that week.
Okay, I might be here by myself.
Go for it. You do you. So we will plan on seeing you in about a month. So that would make it July 11th. Is that right?
Sure.
4 plus 7? I don't know. Anyway, we'll see you sometime in July. Maybe we'll have something to talk about. Maybe we'll do some Mad Libs again.
Yeah.